Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The United States and India have agreed on a trade deal after a phone call between President Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi. The US will lower tariffs on Indian imports to 18%, while India agrees to reduce tariffs and non-tariff barriers on the US, goods to zero, and stop buying Russian oil. President Donald Trump warned that bad things could follow if Iran fails to reach a deal with the US as pressure mounts after Tehran's January protest crackdown. Former US President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify in a congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein days before a planned vote on holding them in contempt. The couple deny wrongdoing and say they've already shared all they know. A US federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from ending temporary protected status for more than 350,000 Haitians, halting potential deportations amid Haiti's escalating gang violence. Meanwhile, US District Judge Anna Reyes said claims that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem acted with hostility towards non-white immigrants. The US Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has announced that all DHS field officers in Minneapolis will be issued body-worn cameras, a move backed by President Donald Trump as a step towards transparency, as the Justice Department also now conducts a civil rights investigation into Pritty's death. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said engagement with China makes US stronger following his visit, but stressed the UK is clear-eyed about security threats from Beijing and that protecting national security is non-negotiable. The European Union, headed by Anna Pearce, head of the Middle East and North Africa Bilateral Instruments Unity for Syria and the Middle East, held talks with the Syrian Director of the International Cooperation Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates, Kwatra Kwadish, as they explored ways to expand cooperation. OpenAI has explored alternatives to NVIDIA's AI chips, citing speed limits in interference tasks like coding. While NVIDIA remains dominant in training chips, the move could test its AI leadership as talks between the two companies continue. Now for your top story this hour. The US Chamber of Commerce President Suzanne P. Clark has welcomed the progress on a long-awaited trade deal between the United States and India. She has congratulated both governments for agreeing to reduce tariffs and non-tariff barriers, a move that she claims will foster even more private sector collaboration between the two countries. Meanwhile, Indian ministers and ambassadors have also expressed their enthusiasm. Amit Shah, India's Home Minister, has noted that the reduction of tariffs to 18% could strengthen India-US trade ties. Vinay Mohan, Kwatra, India's ambassador to the US, and Rajnath Singh, India's defence minister, have described the deal as a big win for India-US relations under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. India's External Affairs Minister has also welcomed the trade announcement, stressing the job creation and innovation opportunities that it can potentially bring to India. We are now being joined by Ambassador KP Fabian, who is a former diplomat joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What strategic and economic goals might the US and India each be pursuing with this trade deal? Beyond just lowering tariffs, how could it reshape their bilateral relationship?
Thank you. My reaction to this deal is rather mixed. On the one hand, we all should be relieved that there is a settlement, because the absence of a settlement was hurting India very much, with our rupee going down and other matters too, because geopolitics being what it is, if country A does not have good relations with the United States, then country A's negotiations with countries B, C, D, E, F, and all that, the country A will find itself in a weaker position. So, therefore, it is a good thing that this seems to be getting settled. But when I look at the terms, I'm less happy, and I do not see why India should agree to buy $500 billion worth of technology, energy, and all that from the United States. Another thing is that it is President Trump who is announcing that India is going to buy oil from Venezuela. Now, this is his style, because he announced the other day that Mexico will stop sending oil to Cuba. In other words, it is for him to announce which country will sell oil to another country. Now, this is rather disturbing. And one more problem I find is that when India buys energy from the United States, the price is not determined based on commercial consideration. It is based on political considerations that makes it more expensive. But having said all that, I think it is good that we have settled it. But let me also share one more concern. President Trump has said that Prime Minister Modi has agreed to move towards, not the word, move towards zero tariff for American exports to India. Now, this is exactly what Trump has done with other partners, with EU, for example, with UK, for example. So Trump has succeeded up to this moment in imposing on others, X tariffs for their exports to America and zero tariff for American exports to their countries. Now, this is grossly unfair and unjust.
And who is actually benefiting the most from this agreement? Is it American businesses, Indian industries, or is it for the benefit of the political leaders themselves?
I wouldn't say it is for the benefit of the political leaders themselves, but I would say that from this, America is benefiting more. But as I said earlier, it was hurting India more than it was hurting America. So I don't think we should mind that it is benefiting America more.
Thank you. Don't go too far, as we will be coming back to you very shortly. Washington's new top diplomat in Venezuela, Laura Dogu, says she has discussed a possible political transition following the ouster of Nicolas Maduro. US Chief of Mission Laura Dogu said she met with interim President Delcy Rodriguez and raised American plans for stabilization, economic recovery, reconciliation and transition process. The statement, posted on the US Embassy's social media account, signals a potential reset in relations between Caracas and Washington. On the same day, Rodriguez named former Foreign Minister Felix Plasencia to lead Venezuela's diplomatic mission to the United States, marking a major shift after ties were cut in 2019. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado said she would consider meeting Rodriguez to define a transition timeline, but warned the interim government remains part of the same power structure. Let's listen in to what Venezuelan Foreign Affairs Minister Yvonne Gil had said about the meeting.
Flores, acabamos de sostener una reunión muy importante, una reunión de la presidenta encargada Delcy Rodríguez, junto con el presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, Jorge Rodríguez, recibiendo a la representante diplomática del gobierno de los Estados Unidos, la señora Laura Dogu, quien ha arribado al país para iniciar esta fase de conversación, esta fase de trabajo, esta agenda de trabajo que ha anunciado nuestra presidenta encargada del tema de Venezuela. Hemos hecho un repaso, de la agenda común, sobre todo en los temas energéticos, temas comerciales, temas políticos, temas económicos y la instalación tanto en Venezuela de la representación diplomática del gobierno de los Estados Unidos, que estará encabezada por la señora Laura Dogu, como la instalación en Washington de nuestra representación diplomática, que la presidenta encargada ha designado a nuestro embajador Félix Plasencia. Como el gobierno bolivariano ha sido enfático de poder construir una agenda productiva, una agenda de paz, una agenda de respeto, una agenda que calce a la perfección con los postulados del derecho internacional, de la Carta de Naciones Unidas, de la soberanía de nuestros estados, y podamos definitivamente enrumbar las relaciones entre los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica y Venezuela por un camino de felicidad para ambos pueblos.
We are now being joined by Ambassador KB Fabian again. Thank you so much for joining us here again. What does the meeting between Rodriguez and the new US Chief of Mission signal about the thawing of ties between Caracas and Washington after years of diplomatic rupture?
It's a welcome development that Venezuela and the United States are having diplomatic relations, and for that it is necessary to have resident diplomatic missions. So that is a very good beginning. But if it is the intention of the American ambassador to Venezuela to interfere in Venezuela's internal matters and to promote a transition of power from the existing Rodriguez to somebody else, for example, Machado, well, that will not be a good development. But my view is that Venezuela is capable of taking care of such matters, and that while Venezuela is compelled to permit America to sort of control its oil export, otherwise, Venezuela will retain its independence of decision-making.
In her comments to the media following her meetings with Venezuelan leadership, Laura Dugo stated that Delcy Rodriguez's government is still the mafia. What does this tell us about how America views the current leadership structure of Venezuela, and how might it inform their future actions?
Well, America wants a regime change. And when I say a regime change, America wants to put somebody in charge of Venezuela who will take orders from Washington. Now, they will still keep on trying, but I'm not sure that they will succeed in full measure.
And with the new hydrocarbon law that has been passed to ease access for private oil players in Venezuela, does this appointment mark the next step in US oligarchies' impending takeover of Venezuela's vast oil resources?
Probably, because when it says that private corporate bodies can get involved, it primarily means private American companies. It is not that, a company from, say, China or Russia will be able to do the exploitation and production of oil. It will be America's monopoly.
And the US currently has less than half the number of envoys across the world when compared. In the context where the US recently captured Nicolas Maduro and Venezuela in appointing new diplomats, what are the risks and opportunities to rebuilding trust between the two governments?
I do not expect much trust to be there, but Venezuelan government will have to handle Trump diplomatically. So it is not a question of trust. It's a question of navigating very treacherous waters as skillfully as one can.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. US President Donald Trump announced that his administration is seeking $1 billion in damages from Harvard University. The move follows reports that Harvard secured some concessions in ongoing settlement talks with the government. Trump accused the Ivy League school of systematic misconduct and failing to meet federal obligations tied to funding and governance. He said elite universities must be held accountable for taxpayer money, insisting no institution is above the law. Harvard said it has not received formal legal notice but will defend itself and maintains compliance with all laws. Taiwanese President Lai Chang-te said that Taiwan must look to fellow democracies, not China, for trade and economic cooperation, as his government mapped out how the island plans to work with the United States in areas like AI and critical minerals. According to reports, senior Taiwanese and US officials last week have discussed cooperation in artificial intelligence, tech and drones at the high-level forum launched during the first Trump administration, with the US State Department praising Taipei as a vital partner. Meanwhile, Taiwanese President Lai Chang-te has responded. Let's listen in.
台湾正走在正确的经济路线上，大步走向世界。台湾有实力，也有信心，和民主伙伴一起引领下一个世代的繁荣。未来执政团队将继续以深化台美经贸与建立科技多元布局为两大目标，让台湾产业能够进一步立足台湾，布局全球，行销全世界。
We are now being joined by Colonel Sanjit Sorohi, who's an international relations and defence expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What strategic advantages and risks come with Taiwan prioritising economic ties with democracies like the US, Japan and Europe, rather than deepening trade with neighbouring China?
Well, Ellie, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on your news channel and discussing this Taiwan president, what he has said. Now, if we see what he has said is that we must have trade relations with the democracies that include the United States, European countries, Japan, and other allied nations. Now, as far as the advantage is concerned, the advantage is that these countries, they have a lot of say as far as Taiwan is concerned. And as far as the United States is concerned, it gives the guaranteed defense guarantee or security guarantee to Taiwan. So Taiwan has to have close relations with the United States. And Taiwan is also aware that in case he goes closer to the United States and other European countries, then they are going to antagonize China. Whereas their opposition leader is already in China and he is attending some think tank meeting with Communist Party of China. And there, the opposition party deputy chairman from the KMT is seeking close cooperation with China. So the ruling party is going for trade partners and other partnership with democracies, and whereas the opposition party, that is the KMT, is getting closer to China. So I think the advantage is that the Taiwan will get a lot of aid, lot of defense equipment and security and other equipments. Whereas the risk is that as long as they get closer to Americans or to Europeans, the China is going to take it very seriously, and then again, China will threaten them with a lot of exercises which China have been doing for the last 3-4 years. Ellie.
Will this trade strategy strengthen Taiwan's security or provoke stronger pressure from Beijing?
Well, if we look at it, what has been happening for the last few years, since this democratic progressive party has come into power, which is pro-Europeans and pro-Americans, China has been putting a lot of pressure, and China has been saying that this Taiwan is part of China only, and they have got full right to invade it whenever they decide. So the question is only of when they will invade Taiwan. Otherwise, China is very clear that they are going to take Taiwan one day, and they will make sure that Taiwan becomes part of China only. Delhi.
Does reducing trade with China risk hurting Taiwanese businesses more than helping security, do you think?
Look, as far as Taiwan is concerned, they have the security concern because of China's aggressive policy and the way they are conducting exercise after every 3-4 months. and they have been trying to pressurize Taiwan, and they have a strained relation with Japan on Taiwan only. So I think that Taiwan is very clear about it, and they know that if they get closer to United States or Europe, they are going to face more risk from China. But I think they are prepared to do that. And the way the Taiwan army is preparing itself, they are ready to take on China whenever they decide to invade Taiwan.
And lightly touched on it there, but will this realistically reduce their dependence on China without hurting its economy?
Sorry, I didn't get your question, please.
Can Taiwan realistically reduce its dependence on China without hurting its economy?
Well, Taiwan is already independent, and Taiwan is going to follow the independent policy. They have the strategic autonomy, and they are the people, because the Taiwan people also, they don't want to get involved with the China. They don't want to merge with China. They want to be independent from China. So they will try to be independent as long as they can, till China they invade Taiwan, and we have to see how the Americans or the other allied partners are going to help Taiwan in fighting against the Chinese.
And do you think now that Taiwan's trade policy is becoming more about values and politics than economics?
Look, as far as Taiwan is concerned, they have a trade and economic cooperation with Americans, and their officials are already in. Last week, they were in the United States and discussing something very, very important regarding artificial intelligence and critical minerals. And they have signed an economic security, and they have also signed on Pax Silica Declaration, which is a US-led initiative aimed at securing artificial intelligence and semiconductor chip supply chain. So Taiwan is following the independent autonomous policy, and let us see how long Taiwan will be able to follow that. Ali.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. It's been good to have you. US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard says she was present at last week's FBI raid on an election facility in Georgia at the request of President Donald Trump. In a letter to lawmakers, Gabbard said she observed FBI agents executing a search warrant at the Fulton County election hub and was there only briefly. Her presence has drawn sharp questions from top Democrats on congressional intelligence committees, who says it is unusual for the nation's top intelligence officials to attend a domestic law enforcement operation. Gabbard also said she facilitated a short phone call for Trump to thank FBI agents, stressing that no directives were given. The raid is linked to Trump's false claims of widespread fraud in the 2020 election, allegations that have been rejected by courts and election officials. US President Donald Trump has said that his administration might have some good news soon on its push to end the nearly 4-year war triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Let's listen in to what Trump had to say.
8 wars, and I think we're doing very well with Ukraine and Russia. For the first time, I'm saying that. I think we're going to maybe have some good news. We're losing 25,000 people a month are being killed in that war, ridiculous war. 25,000. It was 31,000 last month. Think of it. Young, beautiful kids, the kids of parents, their parents. It doesn't affect us in one way, but in another way, it's 25,000 souls that if I can solve it, we're not spending money like Biden did. He gave $350 billion away. I make everyone pay. And the United Nations, they're a little bit involved, but if you take a look at what's happening, the countries of Europe are paying us for the weapons. So we have NATO paying, we send missiles over there, they pay us in full. It doesn't cost us 10 cents. And we make money, I guess, but I don't even want to talk about that, because what I really want to do is save those people from dying. They lose, Mary, can you imagine 25,000 to 30,000 people a month? That's like a stadium full of people every single month. And, I was blessed with something where I can get these things done. Got 8 of them done. I thought all 8 were going to be more difficult than this one. I thought my relationship with President Putin would give us a, much easier road, but there's tremendous hatred between Zelensky and Putin. Tremendous hatred. I mean, it's a shame, but it's taken longer than we thought. I did call up President Putin, and he's agreed, he's put it out to. They have the same cold wave that we do. Maybe different because it's pretty far away, but it's the equivalent. And Ukraine's a very cold country. It's much colder than us. It's colder than, they say, on average, it's Canada or colder. And on top of that, they have a tremendous cold wave. And I asked him if he wouldn't shoot for a period of 1 week, no missiles going into Kiev or any other towns, and he's agreed to do it. So it's something.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russia has largely observed a ceasefire on Ukraine's energy infrastructure as Kyiv prepared for the next round of trilateral talks on how to end the war. Zelensky added that Russia has not carried out any targeted missile or drone strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure in the last 24 hours, although energy facilities in the frontline areas have come under fire. Let's listen in to what Zelensky had to say.
Сьогодні на селекторі були всі регіони, де ситуація зараз особливо складна. Фактично, це області центральної України. Також це прикордонні громади з Росією, де постійні обстріли, бойові дії. На Дніпровщині, особливо в Нікополі, були пошкодження ліній електропередач через обстріли. Також в Павлоградському районі і в інших громадах неподалік фронту. Продовжуються російські удари, в тому числі є пошкодження місцевої інфраструктури, місцевих об'єктів енергетики. На Дніпровщині та у Запоріжжі знову була під ударами Укрзалізниця, наша логістика, але зв'язок між областями, наше транспортне сполучення ми зберігаємо. Важливо, що сьогодні протягом дня не було ракетних ударів та шахедів проти інфраструктури. І це демонструє, що коли є у Америки мотив справді змінити ситуацію, ситуація може змінити.
That's all we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.